just a question about it.
Holy Spirit, enlighten Mike's mind, power his words, overflow in him, Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit, lighten our minds, open our ears, fill the heart with the love for your Pope, your Church, and for our brothers and sisters around the world. So truly is a universal Church. When we ask for all of your blessings, greater pour your seven gifts upon us, to help us know that you love us, to protect us, and to help Mike know that you love and protect him every day of his life. Lord, we ask this special way for the intercession of our mothers. We say, Hail Mary,
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hey, everybody. Bear with me. I kind of just had like this vision that they're going to be in contact room, and I kind of like pointing and calling people. So I understand that the papacy's been around for like 2,000 years. Some of us have like very extensive education as far as like the ins and outs of that stuff. But what I'm going to try and accomplish here is like what we consider like common misconceptions. I'd say a lot of Catholics fall into this too, but maybe even like some of your non-Catholic friends too. So with that in mind, yeah, I'm talking about the papacy. I use quotes around my name on purpose because, as any good researcher knows, it's not okay to plagiarize, and I would be lying if I said any of the words and the answers I have are going to be my own. I have a nice cheat sheet from Catholic Answers and a couple websites that have been super helpful and fruitful. If like there are questions that like from Mike tonight or a month later, I totally suggest you check them out and dig deeper because a lot of really smart people work there as well. Without further ado, so this is kind of the grid of questions. The first one being pretty basic. What is the chair of Peter? What is the papacy? What we mean when we refer to papacy, it's the office and jurisdiction of the Pope as the head of Christ's church on earth. And the English word papacy translates from the Latin word papatus, which derives from the Latin word papa, from which we get pope. If we go back further, in the Greek, papas, which means father, so in the real sense, we understand that pope is like our heavenly, our father figure on earth. And why? And I think like the question is why are we talking about the Pope today? We actually were planning having kind of going over this stuff like a couple weeks ago, or we were planning on having this talk a couple weeks later. And I think the big thing that kind of came up for us was the is kind of what the media, what the news can kind of tell us about the Pope, and it's important for us to kind of check ourselves. And although the news is important, it's super informative, it's also important that we're able to understand how our church sees what the Pope is for, and also how we continue from there. So the next big question from there is maybe why do we need a Pope, right? And so that the church can be unified. Jesus established a hierarchical authority with one person at the head. That's Peter. So I don't necessarily want to go too far. This is going to be a little skewed here, but are there any kind of questions or concerns or anything maybe up here that kind of your eye, in terms of like questions or things that might be confusing. You know, anything that stood out to anybody up here. But yeah, I think there's a lot, even if you're a cradle Catholic, that you kind of watches over you. So going further into like why do we need a pope? Another question that kind of comes up, I think that's more common maybe among like non-Catholics is like, um, well, St. Paul did so much for the church. He wrote the encyclical when he became kind of like the best um, person or even the person on earth that could probably start the church. Um, it's interesting because Paul actually defers to Peter. Sorry, I just guys wrote this stuff up here. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna just take a step back here. Because yes, Paul, it's fine. Paul's writings how he defers to Peter, but we also see so many of the church, original church doctors and fathers acknowledging even after Peter's death or Peter's time in Rome. We can see that like Ignatius of Antioch, Dionysius of Corinth, Saint Irenaeus, all these people 100 plus years after Christ's death were the the people that we kind of refer to. It's like yeah, historical figures we can actually point to that wrote it down, that wrote down so much of our history, and then also acknowledge how essential Peter's leadership was to the future of the church. Yeah, plenty of councils in the 400s and 300s acknowledging that origin, that point of origin. If I may, sorry, that's okay. So I kind of made maybe a historical case for why Peter be the pope, or why Peter can be the head of the church. But where in the Bible is that even mentioned? How can we, are we kind of just extrapolating some political thing onto Peter so that people from ages on and can kind of like buy into this system wholeheartedly, even though we might see down here that Jesus rise from the dead. So, and John wrote, okay, excuse me, no, I'm not using that one. Okay, no, yeah, we're jumping to Matthew here. So Matthew 16, Jesus singles out Peter, and first is and first instills him in that moment the authority of the papacy. So this is Matthew 16, verses 13 through 19. Now, when Jesus came to the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do men say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the powers of death shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And further, as we go further in the Gospels, this is John 21. This is after the resurrection. Jesus speaks of Peter. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you girded yourself and walked where you would. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and carry you where you do not wish to go." And after this he said to him, "Follow me." So I think the temptation here is to see that, okay, Jesus pointed to Peter, and Peter really holds a special role in history of the church, but what about everybody else? Once Peter died or Peter passed on, his legacy, what happened? Well, we refer to that as papal succession, and that is supported also in Scripture. Like we can see in the Old Testament, Psalms kind of litigates um, how sorry, it's very poetic, but it's the idea of someone's office being replaced. There's kind of an organic cycle of rising and falling that comes in leadership that God will provide in all those moments. And from there, we can use like Acts as an example, saying that once after Judas betrayed Jesus, he was replaced as an apostle. Matthias was came in to replace him as an apostle, and Saint Paul, yeah, back to Saint Paul, right? Wrote Timothy, referring to the gift that we have, which was given to you by prophetic utterance when the elders laid their hands upon you. And that is like a moment where Paul refers to that moment where that power was instilled in Peter, that trust, that authority. And although it's very traditional, it's like, yeah, very traditional in nature, we can respect that and still track that through the ages. Now, like this would be the point where I go from 2,000 years of papal history to today and try to track that lineage, which is there. But there's also a lot of turmoil in there too. There's a lot of, it's not necessarily linear history. This is kind of nitty gritty, but like we have like some more common myths, right? Are issues where the Catholic Church has had or where there have been multiple popes in the world, I'll say that. Or where they're looking this up and there's rumors or there's word of a female pope or a woman that rose through the ranks and became pope. And so like those are just a couple things I'd like to maybe address. like to address that are kind of like maybe surprising and starting to hear, especially since we don't really address those kinds of things amongst each other. But it's good to maybe know offhand, um, especially like I said when you kind of consider the origin of papacy and uh, and why it's on Earth today, that it would maybe some of these things would make sense. We wouldn't have multiple popes. Um, and yeah, we wouldn't have multiple popes. So that's that. Yeah, so I suppose probably one of the biggest reasons why this would be easily misconceived that we have a lot of popes is that it's a lot of that's to do with the time of the schism when the church split apart to Eastern and Western and broke further from there. But there were questions in the 14th and 15th centuries where between like the Western and Eastern Church, who St. Peter's authentic successor was. And from there, that's kind of how where the confusion came in, where the turmoil came down. But this was mostly political. I'm going to read directly from this. Due primarily to political reasons, beginning early in the 14th century, the popes had come to reside in Avignon, but Pope Gregory XI returned the papacy to Rome. A conclave in Rome subsequently elected a new pope who took the name Urban VI. Unfortunately, he fell out of favor with the cardinals who elected him, so later that same year they elected another pope who took the name Clement VII and took up residence in Avignon. Then there was Clement VII, more disagreements, etc. Eternally in the church. And that maybe highlights something important when we think about the Pope, and maybe in today's context too. The Pope is, yeah, Peter's successor on earth. He's an authority for us, but he's still human. The cardinals, that office of cardinals, the Pope, and they're all people. They're people with very big responsibilities for sure that impact us, but they are um, flawed. They're human, and so when we see things in our history where things get kind of chopped up as far as who did what and where to follow, who to follow, or, I mean, even today, if you look at our Pope and say, oh, this guy is kind of confusing me, or can be confusing at times, it's important to remember that not only are you human, so you might have a hard time misunderstanding or understanding, but in the same way, the Pope is human, so he either so there means verification, language barrier, all that. That probably leads to final point of this. We're talking about papal infallibility and how that works. So in terms of like myths or misconceptions, I think the big one is the misconception that the Pope speaks infallibly, or that whatever he says is law, or whatever he says is something that you have to follow behind blindly, or yeah, follow. Sorry, I waited too long for um, So, thanks, Catholic Answers. When we are asking about infallibility, what it means, it refers to the Pope being protected from error when he proclaims by a definitive act a doctrine pertaining to faith or morals. When we refer to infallibility, it's when the Pope proclaims by a definitive act a doctrine pertaining to faith or morals. This is not right. This doesn't mean that he is incapable of sinning, that he's incapable of making mistakes, or incapable of misspeaking or saying the wrong thing. Infallibility, the definitive act, it's the Pope standing in that moment saying, I'm infallible, hear me. But just because you might hear him have like a political opinion on like an election or something, not only do you not have to like side with him, but you might disagree with him too. Probably should, yeah, in good prayer, right? And one more thing we want to touch on for infallibility. So the big question coming from this, or kind of leading into this, or all that is, okay, I know that the Pope is human, he can make mistakes, but he's also this person that can speak about. So what is that definitive act? What does it mean? And when has the Pope spoken about? Some of you might be surprised to know, but the Pope is, in the history of our church, has only spoken about it twice. And that's about as far as I can get. Okay. So it looks like the first time he spoke about it was in 1870 and in 1950. Okay, and it looks like, yeah, it's about, the one in 1950 anyway is, when, okay, sorry, whoa, sorry, you guys don't know already. But that's the assertion that Mary was assuming that they were born virgin birth. So, and those are the types of things that, I don't know, I think if you asked anyone else, or if you asked, if you were asked that, you'd probably assume that it was something that you grew up with or that you've known for a while, and that it's pretty new. It's like kind of been, not necessarily been the norm in the church as far as what is completely understood. So, yeah, this is kind of an example of how the Pope can speak about it. Can anyone see a question I really didn't touch on here that they'd like to answer? I kind of try to just go through it.